So from a really young age, I always liked architectural programs. I actually almost wanted to be an architect, and then I found out that they don't make a lot of money. But then I also found out mechanical engineers don't make that much money, but I was already too far gone before I could get rid of that. So anyway, back onto housing. I always liked things like grand designs and people putting cool technologies into their homes and why they chose it and however it worked out for them. But I was always really intrigued by what energy efficiencies, what water efficiencies they could collect. And that's what this week's episode is going to be about. If you look at it, the National Housing Needs Register in South Africa shows that we are about 2.4 million homes behind what we need just to house the people in our nation. And obviously, if we put in a whole bunch more houses, 2.4 million of them, it's going to cause an increase for needed infrastructure, specifically water and electricity. So will the house of tomorrow be more efficient, less efficient? How are we going to structure this? And for that, I have brought in my maniacal master of monotonous mechanics, Mr. Damon Hunselaar. How are you today, kind sir?
I am fantastic.
Fantastic.
Maniacal.
Maniacal.
Isn't that a negative word?
I think you take it as it comes, man. Maybe you're just a villain of mechanics, but for the good of the world, like Megamind.
Ah, like an environmentalist.
Yeah. You know? Environment. Yeah, something to that effect. So, Mr. Hunselaar, we're going to be talking about the house of the future. So basically, what is the house of, I've chosen a year, 2035, but like a house 10 years from now, a decade from now into the future, what's the cool things that are going to be on houses? What do we predict are going to be on houses? And is the house of tomorrow going to be better, cheaper, cleaner than the house of today?
I'm here for it, man.
You're here for it.
Okay, especially if it's cheaper.
Especially if it's cheaper, right? So I'm going to give you some numbers now. I know you're a numbers dude, maniacal about numbers. So I'm going to give you some numbers. First thing we spoke about was electricity. So obviously if we're putting a whole bunch more electricity, households on the grid, we're going to need more electricity. Makes sense, right? So I've chosen apparently, according to the Google, South African households use between 800 and 2,000 kilowatt hours a month. So I'm going right in the middle. If we assume that we get about 1,500 kilowatt hours that a household is going to use, and we add 2.4 million more of these households, we're going to have a whole bunch more electricity demand. So if we're adding 2.4 million more of these households, we're looking at about 3.6 billion kilowatt hours extra per month and about 43.2 billion kilowatt hours extra that we would need annually from the grid. And we already know in South Africa, we're struggling for what we currently have. Now imagine adding a little bit extra. So I know those are just numbers to you. So it's always nice to look comparatively, right? It's always good to have, this is the number, but this is the comparison. So currently in South Africa, we produce just over 200 billion kilowatt hours per year. So if we add those 2.4 billion, if we add those 2.4 million households extra, that's going to be an extra just under 22% extra energy we're going to need to get out of the grid, however we do it.
Damn.
So a lot of electricity more, right?
Yeah, that's at least another power station or two.
Oh yeah, you know, a lot. I was going to say something else, but yes, a lot. Okay, then if we look at water, so water, obviously South Africa, water scarce, we all know the stories, right? So if I'm looking at some data here, apparently every person in South Africa is average using about 237 liters per day. Seems high to me, but we're going to use that number for argument's sake, okay? If we look at how many households this is going to be, so we differentiate between a household and a house that's built. So a household holds more than one person usually. You know, you usually got a significant other, maybe a child, however things go. And that's about, if we take the population of South Africa, the extra people that need the houses, we do some fancy maths. It's not that fancy, but some fancy maths. We get about 3.4 individuals per household. So that's going to be about 800 liters per household per month.
So what I'm taking from this is that the average household has at least one disabled person.
100%. Either top half gone or bottom half gone. However they do it.
We don't discriminate, on the high level podcast. No, that's a lot of water.
It's a lot, right? So if we look
I feel like as the family gets bigger, they would use less water.
Well, usually there's a dad and he's going, hey, turn that tap off.
Listen, you don't pay electricity, turn the lights off.
While you're under my roof, you live by my rules. Yeah? Okay, but anyway, let's assume these numbers are correct. So about 800 liters per household per, that's month, per day, per day. We're going to be looking daily at an extra 1.9 billion liters that needs to be supplied to these households. And annually, 693 billion liters. Now, a billion's a very big number.
It's a massive number.
That's a lot, right? So if we look at it currently in 2025 or 2024, that's currently how much water the mining sector in South Africa uses. So we got to add an extra mining sector to South Africa just for water use so that people can.
So all of this has just been what we need more.
What we need more, right? A whole bunch more.
Damn.
Damn.
That's a lot. That's a lot of water that we need.
No, it's a lot.
And we're a water scarce country.
And we're a water scarce country. So basically, the forest for the trees here is we're going to need a lot more stuff if we're going to build these houses. And obviously, any like efficiency gains we can get from that will be helpful, right? If you can get more efficiency out of the house, you don't need so much electricity and so much water.
Makes sense.
And a big theme of this episode is going to be newer is always better.
Newer, I'm going to say that again, but like more excited. Newer is always better.
That was very excited. I like that. That was good. That's good energy. Good vibes, Mr. Insula. So to give you an idea
Good energy because it's less energy.
Because it's less energy. You're just more efficient than the older generation, man. I'm just putting it out there. So
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry. To give you an idea of just how efficient we've gotten with technology, I've got a few examples for you. All right. So people always talk about the good old days and how things used to last longer and stuff, but it's just not true when you look at the numbers. And I feel like this is a common theme in the podcast in general, right? But if you look at a fridge, just your normal average fridge for a normal house where you keep your groceries, in 1970, that fridge would take about 1,700 kilowatt hours per year to keep your groceries fresh. That's 50 years later to 2020. That same fridge, same capacity, everything is using about 450 kilowatt hours per year. So that's 1,007 compared to 450. The fridge now in 2020 is using 25% the electricity that the 1970s one used to use. And for a bunch of reasons, right? Better insulation,
But
better
the old
compressors.
refrigerators just didn't break.
They didn't break, right? They used to last forever. But anyway, newer is always better. Got another one for you since we're on energy here. The thermal performance of windows.
Okay. I'm here for it.
I've always wanted to do this. I'm too poor to do this. So if we can get some sponsors on the podcast, maybe I can do this. Okay? If we go from a single pane window, there's no insulation at all. So if you're running your aircon, your heaters, whatever, there's a lot of energy escaping to the environment because, nature likes to be in balance, right? If it's warm inside and cold outside, the heat's going to travel outwards. Mm-hmm. Okay? And the way you get around this is by having better insulation. Makes sense.
Makes sense.
So if you move from a single pane window to a double pane window, okay, and that's all literally the same thing, just two pieces of glass, and then you have an insulating gas in the middle, okay, you get about 50% less heat loss just by doing that, just by putting another pane of glass. Isn't that magical? So now you get to save on your electricity bill. Dads out there are loving this. Then if you move over to triple pane windows, this is like, I would love to do this. I would flip and love to do this. If you move to triple pane windows, you're getting 20% more efficient than double pane. So whatever the maths is on that to go from single to triple pane, it's a lot of efficiency.
I've learned my lesson.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to try to do the maths now.
So you're taking the advice. You don't do maths on a podcast. Not live.
For once, I'm going to learn.
You're going to learn.
But how many triple pane windows are there in the world? Like, is it like a big thing in Europe where it's very cold?
100%. Well, because you lose so much, it would cost so much to heat your house.
Yeah, I've heard about double pane windows, but I don't know. This is the first time. This is the first time hearing of this.
Oh, it's the first. No one told you. No one educated you. And this is what we're here for. All right, so that was windows. If we look at building materials, so if we look at concrete now, I was just looking at how better insulating concrete walls, how you can save energy there. And if we look at the U value now, Mr. Hunsela, now you are the heat transfer expert here. Quick expo U value, what is it?
So your U value, you can think of it as how easy is it for energy in the form of heat to pass through something. So for instance, if your U value, so here we've got that for a non-insulated concrete wall, the U value is 1.99 watts per meter squared Kelvin. What that means is for every meter squared of the concrete wall you have, it's going to allow 1.99 watts
per Kelvin.
Per Kelvin through.
Okay.
So you're looking at your difference. So if you take your measurement on the outside of the house, say that's 0, then you take your measurement on the inside of the house. Let's for argument's sake say it's 1. Very cold house.
Easy peasy.
All right. And now we're talking about Celsius, not Fahrenheit. Then Celsius and I'm not gonna over-explain it. Anyway, all you gotta know is the bigger the U value, the easier it is for heat to transfer. Therefore, the colder your house will be.
100%, right? It's going to, like we said, nature likes to equalize things, okay? So the easier the path is for heat to get from the inside to the outside or outside in, whatever the story is, the easier it is and the more it will equalize.
Exactly.
Okay? If you look at, like you said, non-insulated concrete walls, that number was 1.99. If you just go over to an insulated concrete wall, you go down to 0.79. So that is a 50 to 60% reduction in energy costs that you would spend to whatever it is, heat your home, cool your home, whatever the story is. Because now it's harder for the heat to move. So obviously if you're cooling your house, it's harder for the cold to go out.
Yeah.
If you're heating your house, it's harder for the heat to move out.
Energy is lazy.
Right?
So if you make it difficult for it to move somewhere, it's going to stay where it is.
It's not going anywhere. So that brings us to the house of the future, Mr. Hunselaar. So we all agree newer is better than older. And obviously now, if we're going to be building such like massive volumes, 2.4 million households is not an easy feat. And it's not going to happen overnight. 100%, right? We're all realists on this podcast. It's not going to happen overnight. What can we do in the house of the future to make this a bit easier on the grid, easier on water supplies, and just better for people living in general?
I think I know where you're going.
You think I know where I'm going with this?
I think you know where you're going with this.
Where am I going with this?
AI overlords?
AI, obviously. I actually had an epiphany the other day. Side quest, yeah. I think I've decided AI is going to take over. And I'm polite to ChatGPT. I say, please, thank you. You're working so hard. Thank you so much. But also, I feel like if I get good enough at paddle, then my AI overlords will only keep me alive because they like to see humans just try. You know, I've got that skill. Got nothing else.
So you subscribe to Rocco's Basilisk.
100%. 100%. Okay, but let's talk about AI in the home of the future. So we won't go too hectic into this, but I think the nice thing when you think about AI in an application like in a home, what's nice about it is it's like an employee that never gets sick, that never needs to take leave, that's super like obsessed with you. And it literally just wants to make your life awesome.
It just doesn't need to get booked for 10 days.
Doesn't need to get booked off for 10 days. It doesn't need any of that. It doesn't get pregnant. It doesn't go through divorces. It's literally there, I want to say as your servant, but has a bad rap around it. But it's literally there observing you, seeing what you need and trying to anticipate it and trying to make your environment work for you. Right? Do you agree with that?
Indeed.
100%, right? So if we look at AI in the home of the future, very simple things. Like obviously we can put AI in to manage energy, right? Makes sense. Like if you've got solar panels on your roof, it will optimize when to use the solar, when to charge the batteries, when to use it for certain loads, all of that stuff. When to switch between circuits, all of that fancy stuff. That's the easy part, okay? We got things like it can manage climate control. So for us, I know us, we hot dudes. We're hot dudes, right? Hey? Nice eyebrows there. We're hot dudes. We like it. I would like it if someone would anticipate and sort of like, as it can see, I'm getting tired. I'm ready for bed. Like it starts to cool the bedroom down.
Turn the hot blanket on.
You know, for the wifey, you know. If we could get different climate zones, which it would probably be able to do, that would be amazing, all right? Make the climate good for me, climate good for her, and you don't have to think about it. I think these things, it's important to remember, you could do all this stuff yourself, but it's going to be a bitch. Right?
It's going to be time consuming. And you have to remember it.
And you have to think about it and understand all the data, then make the decision. This is what AI is going to take out of it. Right? And obviously, if AI is connected to the internet, it's got a whole bunch of data from a whole bunch of households. Yeah. And it can optimize things.
Yeah, like, so for instance, I think like if AI knew that, okay, the grid's taking strain, it can maybe like decrease the maximum temperature of all the geysers in the area, right? That's saving energy.
Makes sense, right? It could switch off certain circuits and try and make, because for AI on a large scale to make incremental changes could be a massive like benefit to the grid, especially in South Africa where we struggle with that. So AI overall acting as the brain of the home to just manage all the services, to make sure everything's working lacquer. I think in 10 years time, it's not a far-fetched idea to think that even at a low level, AI will be involved in some way in your house.
Yeah, I mean, like, even just that whole Alexa Siri thing, it's already here.
Yeah, it's already here. And I mean, doing simple things like if it's going to be a hot day, lowering the blinds, or something like very simple like that, easy to see, and even the more complex stuff, very easy to see. So now, Mr. Hunselaar, the real thing, I'll end with this. If you're concerned about security, because obviously this would involve basically AI, your AI overlord watching you constantly. So I'm sure a lot of people might be a bit creeped out by that. Are you creeped out by that?
I mean, this thought does scare me to some degree, but like also, you know, the future is now.
It's I don't know what they would observe from me, but if you are concerned about that, I think it's interesting that you might be able to look at, I'm sure companies will come out with it, sort of like a localized AI just for your specific home. So you can feed it like a manual Probably go into ChatGPT, write a manual on your life, who you are, what you like, upload it into your large language model at your home, and it would only have access to that data. Obviously, there's limitations to that. Maybe not ideal, but maybe for privacy, that's what you value.
Yeah.
Could
I
work.
think, I mean, I think it could even be as simple as that. Like you could just express externally, like, sure, it's really hot in here. And then your AI will be like, okay, I'll turn the temperature down.
No problems, man.
Yeah.
No problems. All right, so that's AI in the home of the future.
So
What's yours?
we talk about AI. That's like maintaining our homes and, you know, like a comfortable lifestyle, operating efficiently. But we still need to get to that point.
100%.
And as you said, we still need to build 2.4 million homes
Just in South Africa.
just in South Africa to meet the demand that's already here. Okay. So the next big thing is 3D printed houses.
Obviously.
Obviously. I mean, come on. Like, I'm pretty sure there's in UCT, there's a team and they've got a 3D concrete printer. So basically, peoples, it prints your home for you.
Yeah.
With sustainable materials even.
Yeah.
So yeah, houses will be printed with materials like hempcrete, bioplastics, and carbon negative concrete. And some examples of some companies that are already doing this are Icon, because they build 3D printers houses in the US, and then Wasp's Tekla project. And they use 100% biodegradable 3D materials for 3D printed homes.
Magic for the vegans.
And the whole house, I'm assuming just the structure, because like, let's maybe not comment too much on like electricals and plumbing and all of that stuff.
Well,
24 hours.
Let's pause on that. Do you think it could print things like the infrastructure in the home? Like you could print the piping and the electricals as you go, layer by layer.
Sure, maybe...
In 10 years' time, and you've got 10 years to develop
I mean, maybe you had like a roll of copper tube, and then it just extrudes it on the path, and then it makes it...
Why not? Possible. Anyway, sorry, yes.
Anyway,
Continue with your point.
it would be an interesting idea.
100%.
So, I mean, just to put everything into context, you know, I found a study, and it's called 3D printing versus traditional construction. We will put the link in the bio, but you guys should check it out yourselves. And really interesting study because for me, I like to characterize it. It's not enough for me to say this thing's going to be better.
Yeah.
I want to know how much
What's
better.
the numbers? Yeah.
So this study, they used traditional technology to build a house, or they did like basically a feasibility study on what would it cost to build a house with with like traditional technology,
Like a normal bricklayer
using
concrete machine,
using OPC,
what.
which is called ordinary Portland cement,
Yeah.
and just to build a house. Then they also used a material called we're calling it GPC, which is geopolymer concrete. And so what they did is they used both materials in the study, and they said, okay, what will it cost us to build a house from start to finish?
Everything.
Okay, so they included every aspect of the value chain, from sourcing raw materials to labor to everything, right? What would it cost us to build a house?
Yeah.
So if we look at traditional technology and OPC for a 50 square meter house, that you're looking at about 280,000 pounds, British pounds.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a lot. That's a
A
lot.
little
But
bit.
50 square meters, it's a decent house. It's a pretty big, it's a large house.
100%.
When they used GPC, it went from 280,000 to 284,760. So slight. Because
For Mother Earth.
For Mother Earth, what's 4,000 pounds? 5,000
Right,
pounds.
that's what we
Between friends. Come
Between
on.
friends.
But when they looked at 3D printed homes, that price went from, and using ordinary Portland cement, so maybe not so good for the environment, but
It works.
from 280,000 to 189,000 euros.
That's actually a lot, eh? That's almost 100,000 euros.
That's
now.
a 32.5% saving.
That's ridiculous, man.
All right. And when they did the same exercise with GPC, it went from the 284,000 using traditional to about 192,000.
That's magic, eh?
So that's also about a 32.45 saving. And so if you're going to use 3D printed technology with GPC, it's still going to be cheaper than
the traditional
traditional with
And it's better for Mother Earth. Man, it's magic.
So-
and the technology's still so new, so in the future, it's probably coming down quite a bit as well.
Yeah, so I mean, when we're looking at 3D printing, I mean, we're not just limited to printing just the concrete and whatever.
Yeah.
There's other stuff we can do. So a big buzzword we've heard about is called aerogels.
Yeah.
And basically what an aerogel is, it's a super insulating material. It's basically they use, so like silica. You can think of like silica aerogels. So it's like a sort of a gel. I
Yeah,
mean, we all
gotcha.
know what a gel is.
Yeah.
And then they dehydrate it. They remove all the moisture, and you get left with a highly porous substance it's a solid.
Pretty
But
much.
it's
But
highly,
it's mostly air.
yeah, it's highly porous and it's extremely light. So yeah, so it will allow for like airtight designs, use fewer joints, and then because aerogels enhance walls, they will make homes net zero energy.
It makes sense because I mean you can design it to be airtight.
I mean,
you can
think
print it
about
as
think
it goes.
about your triple pane window.
Oh my! Can
But
be
instead of
printed
air,
into the building.
but instead
No,
of
no,
air in the gaps, you put the aerogel.
transparent aerogel could work.
Could
Why
work,
not? Why
could
not?
work. I mean, I'd actually like to know if air is a bit insulated in the aerogel.
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, they're designed to be insulated, so surely.
Surely.
And I came across two types of aerogels that NASA's they're investigating. They're using silica aerogels, and these are like highly porous materials. Again, removing the liquid to get there. It has a density of 0.3 grams per centimeter cubed. Which is pretty. It's pretty.
It's
light.
like nothing. It's literally
Yeah,
nothing.
it's like over 90% air.
Ah,
Like
it's
that's what
crazy,
it
man.
is.
It's ridiculous.
It's got a really high surface area, which makes it useful for like highly porous substances are good for like capturing things. So it could be used as a filter. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. When I hear high porous, I think filtration.
Yeah.
And then and it's got really small pore sizes between 10 to 40 nanometers. However, they are very fragile.
No, I'm sure.
That's why I said you put it in between the panes. Your pane isn't
Yeah,
made
if you're
from it.
never going to do anything with it, why not?
But you get something called cross-linked aromatic polyamide aerogels. And I'll say that 10 times.
Please, do it.
So, I mean, basically they have superior mechanical properties, but they keep the same physical properties, meaning it's stronger, but it's still just as light, still just as porous.
Still does the job.
Still does the job. And these have low thermal conductivity, high temperature stability, moisture resistance. Just really they're just really nice. Everything you want in an insulator.
They do.
there.
They do it. Okay, fair enough. So could you see in 10 years' time a lot of houses being 3D printed with aerogels done and dusted?
Yeah, I think so.
You think so? Would you put money on it?
Not a lot.
Not, but a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, NASA's using this stuff, and they're using it for like antenna substrates and just insulation, really, heat shielding. So these things, they're not only good for keeping the cold away, they're also good at like managing heat, so keeping the heat out.
Yeah.
So food for thought.
Food for thought. Why not? And I mean, if you can use the thing they use on the space shuttle in your home, that's cool. That's a talking point.
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking, right? Okay, you done with your section?
Yeah.
All right, the last thing we'll discuss is obviously energy was a big part of this. A lot of energy. We have our problems with Eskom. All the South Africans know. We don't have to rehash that. But now with the sort of the availability of solar, with us being able to make solar cheaper, it makes a lot of sense to turn as much surface area on your house into a solar panel as you can and harness that energy. Otherwise, it's just being lost, right? You're just heating up your house for no reason. And no one wants to do that. So we thought about, what if you could turn every square meter of your house into a solar panel? Possible?
Oh no.
Oh no.
Is it possible? I feel like it might be possible because you've brought it up.
Because it's in the notes.
It's in the notes, yeah. And I read these beforehand.
Very, very nice. All right, guys, so we're going to just talk about, obviously, the limiting factor in a lot of solar is obviously the efficiency of the panel. But then we also come into, maybe we're not looking at efficiency, just the surface area that you can get onto your roof. And what happens when you run out of roof space? Well, there's still a whole bunch of walls. There's still your glass. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the outside of your house that gets sun that you're not utilizing at the moment. So what if you could turn it into a solar panel?
How?
I'll talk you guys through it.
Riddle me this.
Riddle you this. All right. So a thing that's already here in 2025, they've already invented transparent solar panels. So you can turn your windows now into solar panels.
So now, imagine you make a greenhouse.
How do you make a greenhouse? Grow food inside. You're growing your food inside. You got electricity. Come now. Is that not the life? Clarkson's farm on steroids. Is that what we're saying? But anyway, okay, guys. So the history of transparent solar panels is they were already invented back in 2014 at Michigan State University. And in 2020, they produced solar glass that they considered fully transparent. So this would be, if you walked up to it, you wouldn't know it's a solar cell, but this thing is producing electricity, not as high efficiency as a normal semiconductor solar cell, but still, I mean, it's surface area that would have been otherwise wasted.
Yeah, I mean, like you wouldn't have put a You're putting it on your window.
Yeah. I mean, what was it going to do before anyway?
Yeah.
Right?
It was going to be transparent anyway.
Right? So the whole idea behind these transparent solar panels is they don't absorb the visible radiation. They're usually absorbing things on the UV and infrared spectrum.
Oh.
So filtering that out, using that to move electrons around. So I think in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of corporates. I saw quite a few companies like Ubiquitous Energy. They're doing it with very big corporates. So obviously they're going to adopt first and they'll run a few pilot plants, stuff like that. But in 10 years time, it might be highly probable that you can go to Builder's Warehouse and just get a drop-in window replacement and hook it into your energy system. So there's the one thing, transparent solar panels, turn your windows into solar panels. The other thing you might start seeing is solar PV paint.
How?
How? You're like an anime character.
Yeah. How? Like just this stuff honestly sounds like science fiction.
Right. So much smarter people than us. But
Yeah.
the first one, which is sounds like a bit of a gimmick to me, but I mean, do with it as you wish. Hydrogen producing paint. Feeling that? I don't know. To me, when I read it, I was
Sounds
like,
more dangerous
than anything else.
You paint your house and now it can spontaneously
you produce
combust.
hydrogen. Gee whiz. Anyway, but some people at the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, RMIT, they produced a solar paint that generates energy from water. So they basically have a desiccant that absorbs moisture from the air, and then they have titanium oxide, which then splits the water molecule, oxygen, hydrogen, and I don't know why you would want to do that. It seems inefficient. I feel like it won't have an application on a house. Maybe
in like a
something
plant
niche.
or something.
Yeah, something niche like that. But just so you guys know, it's out there in case you're interested. The interesting one is quantum dot solar cells. So this is photovoltaic paint. And I'm actually going to lump the other one in here, perovskite paint. Is it perovskite? Am I saying that right? It's a Russian. It was named after a Russian guy. But anyway, perovskite solar paint and quantum dot paint. This is literally like today solar panels. You get perovskite and you get PV, right? Two different things, but both using solar radiation to produce or to move electrons around. So quantum dots, apparently much more intelligent people said this. So I'm just going to read a quote, if that's all right with you. I know it's not podcast worthy of like reading things, but I'm going to say it.
I'll allow it.
Right, you'll allow it. Okay. So this was Susanna Thon. She's from the University of Toronto, and she says there's two advantages to colloidal quantum dots. Right. The first is they're much cheaper, so they reduce the cost of electricity generation, measured in cost per watt of power. And the main advantage is that by simply changing the size of the quantum dot, you can change its light absorption spectrum. Is that not cool?
That is pretty
Right?
cool.
So you just put a whole bunch of quantum dots into paint, and depending on their size,
That kind of reminds me of like butterfly wings. The color doesn't come from a pigment; it comes
Yes.
from the ridges being spaced differently.
exactly that. So that's actually beautiful, man. That's sort of poetic.
Yeah.
Right? So quantum dots, apparently they're 11% more efficient than traditional solar panels, and it's just because you have a lot more control over the size of the quantum dots, the purities, all of that stuff, which is really, really cool. So maybe one day, before I get to that, perovskite solar panels, same story. This was actually invented back in 2014, and they say it's going to be just as efficient as a normal solar panel. So maybe one day, depending on which one you get, you could go down to your local hardware store and paint a solar panel onto the unused walls of your house and start producing electricity. Is that not the house you want to live in?
That is the house of the future.
The future. All right. So newer
is always better.
All right. So guys, we're coming to the end here. I think big picture. We have to build a lot of houses in South Africa. Agreed.
Agrees.
Lots of strain on infrastructure. Any sort of efficiencies we can get, great. Let's do it. Do you agree with that?
I do agree.
It's hard to not agree.
Yeah, I mean, save money and be more comfortable.
Right? And most likely these technologies will get cheaper over time. It will make houses in general cheaper over time, but more efficient, better to live in, better for people, better for the grid, better for water. What's the downside? But that's the house of the future.
Yeah,
Okay.
we live in now.
Everyone's pockets are pinched, inflation, capitalism. You know, we're here to give you guys solid advice, things you can do now.
So let me pose a question to you.
Pose a question to me.
What can I do right now
Yeah?
to live in a smarter home?
Funny that you ask that. It's almost like you have the notes in
Yeah,
front of you.
it's almost like I'm trying to
Lead
lead
me-
the
lead the
conversation into the next bit, you know?
Anyway, guys, so things you can do right now to make your house a bit more energy efficient. I think the low-hanging fruits, obviously, is a smart plug. So you can buy a smart plug. I saw a few on Take-A-Lot, less than 300 Rand. If you buy bulk packs, you can probably get it a bit cheaper. Links to your Wi-Fi, has a little app. You can turn schedules on. You can turn things on and off when you want remotely. Sounds really cool for people worried about like phantom voltages. So like your TV being on standby the whole night, you can turn that off on a schedule. Things like that. Really, really awesome. Really cheap to do. Could save you a little bit of cash munsies. But the real big one, what's the biggest consumer of electricity in your house right now, Mr. Unsalar?
It is none other than the element in my geyser.
The elements in your geyser, right? The thing that makes hot water so that you can have a hot shower.
Yeah.
Agreed. And we're going to get rid of this myth now. Having your geyser on all the time uses more energy than switching it on and off. It's the same thing as, would you run your kettle the whole day just so that you have hot water for when you need tea? Same thing. Okay? So you don't need your geyser running all the time. You can get a smart geyser timer anywhere from 250 to 500 Rand. Okay? And I know this for certain because I've been using a geyser timer for 2-3 years at the moment. And I promise you, in the first month I put that geyser timer on, I reduced my electricity bill by half. Yeah. Close to 50% I reduced my electricity. Right? Because obviously it's the biggest consumer in your house. If you can turn it off, and I'll be honest, there was a getting used to period.
Yeah, because now you need to know when you have hot water.
I'm the dad in the house.
But
I'm
yeah,
very stingy.
Yeah.
Jen likes baths. But
if you time it right, then yeah.
Exactly.
And also, like at our house, if I put the geyser on this morning,
yeah.
leave it on for an hour or two, turn
Sorted.
it off, that night I still have hot water.
Wow, that's a good geyser, man.
Good
Good
insulation.
Good insulation right there. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, smart geyser timer. You can set schedules. It links to your Wi-Fi. All of that stuff. Obviously, get a trained, certified electrician to put it in. We're not giving people bad advice here, but fairly low cost. That will be on this list. Biggest bang for your buck. It's going to make such a big difference. Make your house less energy intensive. LED smart bulbs. This is for those red light people because you get them that can change color. You can set it to like you can set a sleep routine. So all the lights start to go.
I want one
Right now. 150 to 300 Rand, man. And if you buy the bulk packs, they get as cheap as like 70 Rand.
My birthday's coming up.
Dude, I got you. All right, so LED smart bulbs. We got some water saving devices. Smart leak detectors. Seems like a gimmick. Have a look at it. 250 to 300 Rand. Low flow smart shower heads. Now shower heads are expensive as balls, man. Like cuck expensive.
Especially if you go for like an artisanal one.
No, dude, it's wild. And you get filtration. And I saw one with 20 layers of filtration. 20. Why?
Why are you trying to drink your shower water?
I don't know. Some people get thirsty, man.
Gonna clean this shower water just to wash the shit on my ass.
Yeah, it's clean coming in. It won't be clean going out, man. That's what I say. But anywhere from 100 Rand to 2,000 Rand you can spend on a low flow shower head. Makes a big difference. Then we got some for those people who have gardens. You can get, I found one, it's called the Rainpoint Wireless Smart Wi-Fi Irrigation Timer.
Sure,
so this thing's cool. That was a big name, right? But this thing was actually really cool. It's about 1,500 Rand on Take-A-Lot. You can set it to watch the weather in your area and it will adjust your watering based on that. And you can set like what plants are in the vicinity and stuff. Really looks cool for someone much higher pay grade than me.
I think for someone that's like really into their garden.
Right, then this is the thing for you. And for 1,500, I'm sure you could have a lot of fun with it. And then finally, looking at a full-blown home energy monitoring system, so monitoring each circuit in your DB board. Obviously, again, get an electrician to put this in.
Yeah, what's this saying? If you can measure it, you can manage it.
If you can measure it, you can manage it.
So if you can see what's wasting your electricity,
why not?
Can I trauma dump quickly?
Please, trauma dump.
So a couple of years back, like I decided to go through the exercise of how much money am I spending on fast food in a month.
Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah.
Honestly, changed my life.
Just
because I knew how much I was spending.
Yeah. Because you measured it.
Yeah, I measured it and I was like, okay.
This is too much.
This is a problem.
Not good for the waistline and not good for the bank account.
Yeah.
100%.
So, I mean, what you can measure, you can manage.
What you can measure, you can manage. So you can get something for between 500 and 1.5, and there's very expensive systems out there. I was just doing generals here. You can get things upwards of 10 grand, but this thing's doing a lot for you. But anyway, just to measure, it'll measure on each circuit what you're using, where you can optimize, things like that. It's got a lot of them say AI driven. I don't know what AI they have, but experiment. If you guys have anything on this list, please drop a comment below. Tell us what we should look at. If you guys have had good results, bad results, we'd love to hear. That would be amazing. But there's very low cost ways that you can make your life better, more efficient, and just happier overall. All right. So that's the end of the episode. Anything you want to add in finale, Mr. Unsalar? I'll give you the final word on this one.
The final word on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you really get down to it, there's things you can do to make your life cheaper and easier. And the way that technology is going, it's gonna be a wild ride.
Awesome, man.
A wild ride.
Newer is always better.
Better.
Right? Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Let's hit it off. Final recommendations. What's your recommendations for this week for me, Mr. Hunselaar?
So I've recently started watching Clarkson's Farm. Sure, I must say it's very funny.
Yeah.
And he's got. I admire that he just does what he says
wants.
he's gonna do.
Yeah.
So he's like, I want to build. He's like, I'm gonna dedicate a section of my farm to rewilding so that I can help with the whole insect thing.
Nice.
And then and it's quite funny. So like,
I have to start
because
watching.
he has this advisor named Charlie. I think his name is Charlie. So this dude just makes sure he's always on the right side of the law. So he's like with farming, there's a lot of regulations and stuff.
Got you.
So whenever he's trying to do something, he consults this guy. He calls him Downer Charlie or it's very funny.
It's very good.
Very funny.
Worth a watch.
Yeah, and also like it kind of brings to light just how expensive to be a farmer it is.
I don't know how farmers survive, man.
And there's a part where he builds a shop to sell the produce that he's got on his farm, and then he had to go through he had to get permissions from the town council so that he could build it, and then he opened for one day. And to be famous, like dude made one tweet, did no advertising, just made one tweet like my shop's opening tomorrow. Horde of people came.
Having a personal brand, man.
People, he didn't even have the car park ready. Then later on, he's like one farm assistant is like charging people 10 pounds to pull them
Just
out
to
of the
park.
mud. And then he goes up and he starts yelling. He's like, you can't charge people to pull them out of the mud. And he's like, yeah, but I'm providing a service. He's like, it's a car park. They're not supposed to get stuck. It's our fault. You can't charge them for this.
Oh, man, I love it. So worth a watch.
Worth a watch.
Okay, 100%. Mine's going to be What We Do in the Shadows. It's a recommendation from you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm literally just getting into it. It's basically The Office meets Parks and Rec meets like a porno for vampires.
Yeah.
It's very wild. I'm enjoying it. I won't lie. It's very interesting. I'm close to the end of season 1, but really enjoying it. So I need to get through that before I start Clarkson's Farm. I can't start too many things at once.
Yeah.
Then I get to nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, any parting words, Mr. Insula?
Look, be well. I don't know.
Be well.
You always catch me off guard when we have
sorry
to do
about
these
that.
things.
Thank you guys so much for joining us for this week's episode. We really appreciate you. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. If you want to contact us, it's highlevelpodcasts@gmail.com. And please, guys, if you haven't subscribed, like I said, please hit that subscribe button. Helps us a lot. We'll see you guys in the next one. Have an awesome week.